Well, hey guys, welcome to Hope Rescue Podcast. It's Kimberly and Tim Scott. We're glad to be with you here a week into the new year, January. How are you doing on your
2024? Can you believe it?
How are you doing on all your new goals? Did you make any new goals?
I
didn't either.
I should probably think about that. Wait, I want to get about halfway through the year, and then I'm going to go, you know what? This is what I've done well. I'm going to make that my resolution.
I like that.
Retroactive all the way to the first.
Well, I haven't been to the gym now in a minute is what I'll say. So it's good to be back signed up again.
Yep.
And we're working
Here we
out
go.
together. We've been doing our separate thing for a while, actually since COVID. So watch out, Tim. I'm coming
Here's
in
the
with
problem.
my gains.
If your wife is into yoga stretching,
Yes.
Jesus kind of
Pilates,
yoga.
floor Pilates.
Then you have to stretch when you're at the gym. But I'm into weightlifting, and she's not into
Not
that.
so much, but yeah, treadmill. Treadmill is good.
We're going to talk about flexibility today, and
That's a good way to segue.
The only way that Kimberly has flexibility is all this stretching.
That's right.
I don't have flexibility, physical flexibility.
Yeah.
But in a physical health, there are physical strength. These are the three components of a healthy body. You got the physical strength, endurance, and flexibility.
That's good, babe.
And I've got
that'll
one,
preach.
one out of three. So, but in a personal relationship, we need flexibility. And so we are in week 6. Now, I know it's a new year, but this is we've had such a
Continuation.
positive to this series. Let me tell you where we've come from. We did take a kind of an extended break, so welcome back. Those of you who subscribe, please invite your friends to subscribe. Go to hoperescuepodcast.org and you can catch up where we are. The first 5 character traits for all relationships, not just marriage, but every relationship you have. Number 1 is patience. We could use a little more of that. Confidence, self-esteem, passion, optimism, we talked about last time. This week we're starting on flexibility, and then next week and the following weeks, humility, respect, and gratitude. Those 9 character traits are the character traits of every healthy relationship.
We should have added a 10th just to even it out.
I don't want it to be a round number. I'm too flexible for
You're
that.
too inflexible.
Yeah, I'm a little bit. I do like things to be round numbers, but we're going to go with 9.
I know. I'm proud of you, babe.
And there's probably 20.
There's
but
a lot
we're
more.
taking the top 9.
Yeah.
And
I think flexibility is a really good one. We had an event happen over the Christmas holidays, unforeseen. If those of you who are like me, probably most moms and some dads, but take the responsibility on of creating Christmas, and it takes weeks.
Christmas this year.
The decorating, the wrapping of gifts, the shopping for us. We have an extended list, obviously, with having 7 kids plus all their significant others and almost 9 grandkids now. So there's a lot to it. Preparing the food, buying the food, all that. The Costco nightmare trips the week before. Anyway, life happens, and Christmas Eve.
Wait, just before you go on, Christmas Eve. Remember that the shopping online shopping was glorious this year.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. No, it's so true. That was very helpful.
Oh my gosh, it's just so nice.
Very helpful.
Anyway,
Christmas Eve, we had Shara and my son-in-law Devin and their baby here staying with us, and family coming in and out because most of our children live here closely. Some were flying in, obviously, from Chicago and stuff. But that being said, I started to get a little queasy on Christmas Eve.
You did.
Thought maybe I was like, maybe I'd eaten something funny or whatever.
What's that noise in there?
And then it went south so fast. Yeah. And I was worried, obviously, I was laid out kind of sick.
Yeah, let's not get into
No, I'm not
many
getting into details.
details.
Shara and Devin had gone on a quick road trip Christmas Eve, but on the way back decided to call at about 8:00 at night saying, we're coming home, but just so you know, this has been happening. And Shara had been really sick. And so then all of a sudden the red flags go up that this isn't something I ate. This is actually like a bug. So it caused this huge, like, what do we do? Because we can't invite everybody into our home that has not been sterilized. And if there's a bug going around, we have all these babies. You know, when you're a parent of young children, the last thing you want to do is have something like that was pretty violent, let me just say. Go anyway, what happened was so cool because we sent a text. Tim, you sent a text at 9:00 at night, like, this is the situation. I think we're going to have to call off Christmas morning because we always celebrate Christmas morning here.
Yeah, because the kids go to their in-laws
right,
and all
in the
that.
afternoon. So anyway, within an hour, the kids had stepped in, that whole flexibility thing, and rerouted everybody to somebody else's home. All the food was shifted, and Christmas morning happened, sadly, without Shara and I. But it was so wonderful to see them step into that kind of thing. And that kind of flexibility is, in a relationship, as we've learned in 18 years, so powerful to be able to say, like, okay, all the plans you've laid can get flipped upside down. But if you can remain flexible in your relationship, and with sickness, illness, loss of family members, this is the stuff that affects relationships. But to be able to stay flexible is really key.
And it actually, in some ways, was one of our best Christmases, even though
because I wasn't there.
Shar and Kimberly weren't able to be there.
Right.
And I almost said, well, maybe I'll stay here, but that would have been bad.
That would have been sad.
You know, because everybody expects me at a party.
They do. It's not the same.
Anyway, so it was so cool to see everybody rally. And it was so great. And then, we were able to spend the afternoon and evening here.
And we were the only ones that got sick, which was great. Just her and I.
So I didn't get sick.
So here's our anchor verse for this topic today. It's Colossians 3:12. It says, "Put on then, as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another, and if one has complaint against another, forgiving each other, as the Lord has forgiven you, so you also must forgive. And above all else, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony."
Yeah, that word bearing with one another is the reason we're using this verse, because we're talking about flexibility. So the word bearing has to do with tolerance. And, there are times when I'm intolerant and there are times where I'm tolerant. Flexibility demands that we be tolerant. If you overreact to the problems people have and the differences that people have, and your opinion about it matters to you so much that you have to express it, you're not going to show that flexibility. And what you're going to do is create an unsafe environment for the relationship.
Right.
So especially in marriage or with your children or with your intimate friendships or even with coworkers, what happens is when we are wooden and intolerant and inflexible, we have a tendency to drive people away.
Right.
So I love it. Perfect harmony is the goal in verse 14, but in verse 13, it only goes through this roadway of tolerance. You will never get to perfect harmony in your marriage unless there is at least enough tolerance to create safety, enough flexibility. So this is what flexibility is it's adapting to the variables in life. Every one of you has to adapt to certain variables in life. The ability to flex, that word for flexibility, that ability to flex when things change or when stress comes into your life, that's what flexibility is. This is essential for marriage, more so than any other relationship. When you are married, it is a permanent life commitment. And if you are inflexible, you're going to push away that person that means the most to you, and you're going to sabotage the most important relationship. So, as important as flexibility is, we need to understand that there can be both healthy flexibility and unhealthy
Yes.
flexibility. So we wanted to talk about that.
Yes.
So we wrote down a few things about that.
And just to mention again, this is, we talk a lot about marriage, but I want to just reemphasize this relates to parenting, to working with coworkers, in your workplace, to friendships, any kind of relationship. So keep that in mind. If you're a listener and you're not married, you don't have a partner, whatever, these are just really great foundational relationship tools. So unhealthy flexibility is something that looks like this, like a loss of your opinion. And I'm glad I get to...
Have you ever lost your opinion, my dear?
There are certain temperament types, personality types, numbers on the Enneagram that comes more natural to, because your base nature, and I'll just speak to my own, I'll call myself out, is to keep peace. So in the quest to keep peace, an unhealthy version of that is that you can lose your opinion or your opportunity to voice your opinion. That's not healthy. That's not flexibility. That's actually death to a relationship and actually death to your own soul, personally. So another thing is acquiescence is not the same as flexibility. Acquiescence means like you're accepting something reluctantly, but without protest. So you're just basically like, laying down. Yeah.
How many times have you seen people do that? This is the problem with bullying. When people bully, at some point it becomes so unbearable to the one being bullied that they acquiesce.
Yes.
That's not flexibility. That's unhealthy acquiescence. You have to stand up and say, you're going to stop bullying me. I'm either going to resist you, or I'm going to be away from you, or I'm going to find a way to deal with this in a healthy fashion. But what you're doing is wrong. I deal with, there are certain people I deal with that, are flat out bullies, and not too many, but
in the workplace. Yeah.
In the workplace. Yeah. And I've seen that in churches as well.
Yeah.
People that have bullied, and they demand their way. And it comes from this desire to control out of insecurity.
Right.
And to be flexible in that is to lose yourself. You talked about the loss of your opinion.
Right.
When you are bullied, if you see this as an opportunity for flexibility, you're going to find yourself in a worse situation. You need to be able to stand up for yourself.
Right.
You need to do that in a healthy way.
Right.
So,
and if you lean into people pleasing, you're probably our audience right now.
How would you relate to that through kind of like I'm an 8 on the Enneagram.
Yeah, and I'm a 9.
And you're a 9.
Which we are naturally drawn to each other. I hear that's a thing,
Yeah. I only like 9s. I don't like 8s.
You would kill a fellow 8, and they would kill you, or they'd kill you first in marriage.
I have coworkers that are 8s, but my favorites are 9s.
I think God knows what He's doing, and I think we're naturally drawn to someone who is a balance to our own temperament, which is part of His design. But in doing that, we've shared so many times about our first marriages, and in my first marriage, I had a very unhealthy flexibility out of fear. I lost my voice, and it damaged my soul, and I forgot who I was and who God called me to be. In my desire to acquiesce and avoid conflict and keep peace, and frankly, to avoid being a target for being berated, humiliated, and torn down, I would give in and I would give up. And in the process, I lost myself. So that's our point, is that if you recognize those elements in your relationship, that's unhealthy flexibility. That's not flexibility. That is destruction of your spirit and your soul. So you're going to talk to us about what healthy flexibility is.
Yeah. Well, before we do, you made mention of this fact. I don't want people to miss this. Giving in, giving up, and losing yourself. And that's kind of sums up what you were talking about. And if you've ever lost yourself, you stop being who you really are, and you don't have a voice. I remember somewhere in our relationship, you started talking about the fact that I lost my voice in my first marriage, and I gained it back. And
as a single mom,
I do see that you have a voice.
Yeah. Well, and I flexed that early on because I knew my potential. your potential is to lead. My potential was to follow. And I think that's our God-given nature for both of us. But I knew that I risked for our marriage, me going into unhealthy habits, and frankly, you leading, because that comes natural to you. So, so that was an uncomfortable but healthy adjustment in the early days, was for me to be able to speak my mind. And I think you gained more respect for me because,
absolutely.
when you feel like someone is speaking their mind and does it in a healthy way, there becomes a mutual respect.
And there's an opportunity to grow.
Right.
So
right.
if you did not have a voice, I probably wouldn't change and grow.
Yeah.
And I do believe I've changed and grown
Yeah.
over the last, almost 20 years together. And I mean, we're coming up on that.
Yeah.
The reality is, if your partner or your friend or whoever it is that you're in a relationship with, if they don't have a voice, you're not going to learn from them.
It's not a relationship.
Yeah, it's not a relationship. Yeah. So let's talk about the healthy. That's unhealthy flexibility. It's my joy to talk about healthy flexibility. Like, healthy flexibility is what we would call strength. So think about strength under stress. So if you've ever walked through a forest and a branch has fallen off of a tree, and when you step on it, it's dry and brittle and it breaks under the pressure of your foot. But when a branch is green and healthy and attached to the trunk, and it's getting all of the fluid that it needs, when the wind blows, it doesn't snap in the wind, it actually flexes. A healthy tree is a flexible tree. That's where its strength is. And that's what we need in our relationships. We need the kind of relation or the personal flexibility to have strength. So when difficulties happen, we can grow through it. Healthy flexibility is adaptability. So flexibility prepares us for inevitable changes. Think about the changes that you face in your life. We wrote down several, but I just off the top of my head, a career change. Think about career. I just had a career change last year. At the beginning of last year, I started in corporate work. Now, I've always dabbled in corporate work as a board member, but now as a, C-suite officer, I have a responsibility to run a company. And that was a whole new paradigm for me. Now, I've run companies before, but this was the first time at this level that I've had to ramp it up. I had to learn and I had to grow. And I learned from my fellow employees. I learned from great leaders in the company that are around the world. And I learned their different. I had to be flexible to grow. If you're not flexible, you're not going to grow.
Right.
Think about, you moved to a new location. We sold our house before we had a new house. And we had lived in that house our whole marriage, and our kids were raised there, and then they were grown, and we just had one child left, and we don't have a house to go to.
Yeah.
So we rented a house real quick,
Yeah.
and we lived in that house
6
for
months.
1 year.
Oh, was it a year? I
One
thought it was
full
6
year.
months. That's right.
We had a 1 year lease, and in the meantime, we knew we needed to buy, and we bought the house we're in now, and we moved in about a week before our lease was up. And so it was a perfect move, but that was somewhat traumatic, moving. I don't like moving. I want to be in this house the rest of our life. Unfortunately, it's a 2-story house, so we may not last that long.
We may just live on the lower level.
Yeah. We do have a bedroom downstairs, so we might be all right. But anyway, the point being is you have to be flexible. Think about financial loss. Think about health problems that you adjust to. So all of that takes flexibility. If you're going to be healthy in your relationships, you're going to have flexibility.
Right.
So let's skip these. And let's get to how to develop flexibility.
Yes.
Let's get to that if we could.
So the first thing is to analyze what is essential so that you can flex on what's unimportant. And that's so good. Take a step back and look at what is really essential,
Yeah.
and let the small stuff go.
Yeah.
Because I think, we can get so fixated on on all of the, we can put on the same level things that are so insignificant in our lives and in our relationships, and so, well, you didn't gas up the car like you said you were gonna. That's not the same as, well, you're not coming home from work when you said you would.
Yeah.
And, it's 2 hours later and you've not even called me, like that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like there's so there's different levels.
Yeah. To the person who didn't call and came home late, make sure you call.
Yeah.
Be respectful.
That's not a flexibility thing.
Yeah. But the person that received that, you have to have some flexibility. There may be extenuating circumstance, but how do you analyze what is essential? So one of the things that you should do is step back from your emotion and say, okay, I'm emotional about this. We're having an argument.
Yeah.
And this argument is emotive. So it's causing emotion in my partner. It's causing emotion in me. So therefore it's emotive. And I need to step back from that. Sometimes you need to step back from the conversation so that you can go, okay, that was emotional. And the way that you analyze it, go, how important is this a year from now? This conversation we're having, the fact that you dented the car, or the fact that we ran out of gas, or the fact that whatever it was, we didn't get the food that we were going to get, and whatever it is, you may argue about nonsense. Those things in the long run, if you can step back from the emotion of the moment, analyze whether this is essential, put it in the context of a year from now.
Right.
Will it matter?
Yeah.
Maybe 5 years. If it takes that, that's how you analyze it.
That's
so
good.
The first way to develop flexibility is analyze what is essential. What's the second one?
The second one would be to lean into and listen with sympathy for others.
Yeah.
So, in other words, soften your heart before you engage on a topic. So, and step into their shoes. Listen with sympathy,
Yeah.
and so that you can disconnect. Personalizing what they're saying and step into their story.
Yeah, I think one of the things you can do, by the way, for your partner who's being inflexible is not to say, hey, you're being inflexible. That's just going to make them more,
Rigid.
Yeah. The best thing you can do is when you say that, this is how I feel.
Right.
And that gives them an opportunity. They may not take it. Gives them an opportunity for sympathy.
Or when you...
So if I'm looking at you and I see that you're hurt by something I've done, because I love you, immediately have sympathy. When I'm looking for how I want to win, I'm not seeing sympathy.
Right.
I'm looking for the win.
Right.
So listen, like you had mentioned, sympathy for others. Lean into that sympathy so that you can be flexible to that person.
Right. And I would say the next would be to listen with humility. So again, that almost leans into the whole process of depersonalizing as well. Lower, and it doesn't mean you die to yourself, but lower yourself and allow them to take that position of sharing safely. And so by entering into that conversation with humility, it also provides them safety in the process.
Yeah. Here's the third one. So number one, analyze what is essential, lean into sympathy. Number two, and then listen with humility. And number four, understand the limitations of time and the extent of eternity. Kind of goes back to what we were just talking about a moment ago, how to develop flexibility. If I start to look at eternal values versus a temporal moment, then I can begin to be flexible. Flexibility comes from putting things in context, not just the immediate context, but the context of eternity.
Right.
Very important. The fifth one is this: release bitterness. So if you have an unforgiving heart and you are rigid, something happens within our soul when we release somebody. It creates this flexibility in our soul and in our relationship with them. And number 6,
so good.
Submit to each other as unto God.
That's powerful. That's the drop the mic moment.
Yeah. So when you think about, I'm submitting to you and you're flawed, then I have limitation on my submission to you. But if I go, I'm submitting to you as unto the Lord, which
Yes.
Scripture says several times, husbands, love your wife as unto the Lord, or like God loves. Wives, submit to your husband as unto God. Employee, submit to an employer as unto God. Husbands, submit to the needs of your wife as unto the Lord. I'm not looking at the flawed person. I'm looking at a perfect God who has called me to meet the needs of others.
Yes.
And it creates that flexibility. So
good.
if you want to develop flexibility, you're going to have to go through those steps. And I think you're going to find that it's a really powerful way to relate to other people. So patience, confidence, self-esteem, passion, optimism. We talked today about flexibility. Next week, we're going to talk about the 7th essential character trait of relationships, and it's humility. So I hope you'll join us. Invite your friends to listen to this. HopeRescuePodcast.org. Invite them there. All of these reside there. You can go back and look at our archives as well. So thanks for listening. We will see you next week on Hope Rescue Podcast.
Bye, guys.